This week in Linux, we have a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about some alphas and some betas and also some big news from Valve. So we have KDE Plasma 6.3 beta that is coming out, with System76 releasing the Alpha 5 of the Cosmic Desktop environment, and Valve announced that SteamOS is going to expand beyond the Steam Deck. All of this and so much more on This Week in Linux, the weekly news show that keeps you up to date with what's going on in the Linux and open source world. Now let's jump right into your source for Linux good news. This episode of Twill is sponsored by Sandfly Security. More on them later. So the latest beta of KDE Plasma is released with 6.3. So if you would like to help test the next release of KDE Plasma, you can do so. I have links in the show notes for those who want to help test. Again, this is for the beta version. It's not for production ready. You're not going to be finding it on like any KDE related distro. But if you want to do some testing, you can help out. And there's some information about how to do that in the show notes. Now, as far as what happens in this release, the release notes are a little sparse, a little bit. So let's check those out. We have Spectacle that says we have moved our screenshot and screen recording tool to Plasma to better align with the tech it uses. End of release notes. What's funny is that this is clearly not the end. Obviously, they're going to be doing some updates for when 6.3 actually comes out. But I just thought it was kind of funny. That's the current release notes for this release. And if you go into full changelog for the Spectacle one, it's like, okay, what's more details about this? Then you go into here and you find a lot of details. A lot of stuff that eventually I suspect will be on the release notes of the main page. But there is quite a few things in here, and we do have access to the wiki page, which gives a lot more information. So let's jump over there. So we have a lot of stuff to talk about now once we look at the wiki, and we have Plasma 6.3, and there's based on the type of changes and stuff like that. So we have tablets and other input devices. We also have screen and window management, desktop and panels, widgets, notifications, discover system updating, accessibility, and technical data. So there's a lot to cover. We're not going to be able to cover everything in here, but we're going to cover a bit. So let's do that. So with the tablets and input devices, there's a lot of cool stuff. They have the ability to disable the touchpad while the mouse is plugged in, or a mouse is plugged in, is great because this allows you to disable the touchpad. So when you're typing, it doesn't annoy you with your like palm tapping in and clicking stuff. And this way it'll automatically do that by having the mouse attached, which is good. Also, customizable stylus pressure curve for drawing tablets, which is really good for anyone who uses Krita and does like digital graphics and stuff like that, because being able to control the pressure of the stylus is important, because it's like the more pressure you put, the more ink, so to speak, it adds to the content. And I like that they have done that. And also they have overhauled the drawing tablet KCM UI to better support the growing amount of features, and added stylus pressure and tilt information to the tablet tester, as well as many other tablet and input device improvements. They've also done a lot of stuff with the screen and window management. First, the notable thing that I would want to talk about is the HDR on SDR laptop displays. I don't even know how you would do that. Very cool. So I'm looking forward to testing that. And also, they've reduced blurriness for fractional scaling factors, which is really good for those who have high DPI screens. And also, there's the pixel grid effect at very high screen zoom levels. So if you zoom in your system and you zoom in very far, it kind of becomes a little blurry. And this is a way to fix that to make it more crisp. And that's really cool. For those who don't know, I covered this in the 17 things you didn't know about Plasma in my video I made. I'll have that linked in the description if you'd like to check it out. And it is a video talking about how all the different stuff you can do that you might not know that it's available in KDE Plasma. One of those things is that you can zoom in your entire system. So on a lot of browsers and a lot of applications, you can control plus, minus and equals. Not technically plus, because that would require the shift key, but it's minus and equals. And in Plasma, you can hold the super key or meta key or whatever, and then do the plus and equal, the minus and equals, and it will zoom the entire system. As far as the desktop and panels go, you can now clone a panel if you want to, which basically means you can duplicate an existing panel. So previously you would have to create an empty panel or one of the default panels and then make modifications. Now, if you've made a modification and you want to do something that's mostly the same, you can just clone it and have a duplicate of it and then do whatever tweaks you want as well. So that's very cool. Speaking of widgets, there's a ton of changes in various different widgets, from the kickoff main menu to the digital clock to the printers widget to the task manager widget and so many more. And you're going to just go check them out for yourself to get more details. But the K-Runner stuff for the searches is really nice because they've added it possible to quickly jump between categories with the keyboard shortcuts with page up and page down and control up and control down while you're doing the searches in K-Runner. Now, there's something I like about the notification stuff that they've made in the updates for Plasma 6.3, and that is that there's a new pop-up for how many notifications you have missed when you turned on Do Not Disturb mode. I like the fact that Do Not Disturb mode is a feature because when I'm recording something, I don't want stuff to pop up in my face while I'm doing screen recording. So having that is very important, but also sometimes you're going to miss some things and you might not know how many. You got to scroll to see what everything. I like that pop-up to say, like, this is how many things you missed. It's a nice thing to have. It's not a critical piece by far, of course, but it's a very nice to have thing. Now let's talk about Discover Software Store and the system updating, because it now displays when an app is published by its developer or verified by a trusted third party, like on Flatpak where they have the verification system. Very cool, as well as giving you highlights of information with a sandboxed app that has permission changes when it's possible after like an update has changed the permissions. Very cool, because it gives you an update notification that that thing has happened so you can be informed if permissions are ever changed. Now, this is all about Plasma 6.3 beta, and there's a lot more to come, of course. There's still, the final release hasn't come out, so there's going to be more changes that probably happen in between the time and then now. But I'm also excited for 6.4. Because it just, at the very bottom of this wiki, it says, per virtual desktop custom tile layouts. That is very cool. For those who don't know, virtual desktop in Plasma means workspace in other systems, like GNOME has workspaces. So virtual desktop custom tile layouts. So like if you want to have tiling systems, you can have different tiling layouts in different virtual desktops, and you can just switch to which one you want. Very cool. I can't wait for that one. We're going to have to wait for that one because that's from 6.4, but I'm looking forward to that. Another thing I'm excited for the future of KDE Plasma is that they have announced that there's work on enhancing the control of Plasma itself with automations, specifically with integrations with Home Assistant, and I am very excited about this. So there's a lot of work being done. There's a Fabricator post. I'll have that linked in the show notes, and also a blog post from David Amundsen about how you can add home automation to KDE with Home Assistant. Now, this is also like a pre-alpha, alpha type of thing, so it's not necessarily ready to go, and it probably won't even happen in 6.3, but I am very excited for this kind of thing because there's so much potential. I already automate a lot of stuff with scripts and all that sort of stuff, but to be able to connect Home Assistant to it, that's going to be awesome. Linux Foundation have announced a new initiative to support open development and enhance projects within the Chromium ecosystem. It's known as the launch of the supporters of Chromium-based browsers. Now, the Linux Foundation is, for those who don't know, is a nonprofit organization that helps a lot of different things through open source and Linux, and they are announcing this new initiative that aims to fund open development and enhance projects within this ecosystem of Chromium. I'm calling it an ecosystem is interesting because I feel like that's a lot for a browser. It is technically, because browsers and web apps are becoming more and more dominant, but the idea is to help broaden support and sustainability for open source contributions that will drive technological advancement, as they say. And Google is probably like 94% of the development of Chromium. They posted themselves an article about this, an announcement, and they say that 100,000 commits to Chromium was made by Google in 2024, which accounted for 94%. Did I say 94%? I think I did. All right. That was a good guess. Jim Zemlin, the executive director of the Linux Foundation, says, with the launch of the supporters of Chromium-based browsers, we're taking another step forward in empowering the open source community. This project will provide much needed funding and development support for open development of projects within the Chromium ecosystem. End quote. That is saying a lot of the same thing multiple times. So the supporters of Chromium-based browsers initiative will provide a neutral space where industry leaders, academia, developers, and the broader open source community can work together to support projects within the Chromium ecosystem. By fostering collaboration, the initiative aims to remove barriers to innovation, expand adoption, and ensure that projects within the Chromium ecosystem receive the resources they need to thrive. That's a nice way of saying being more than just Google. Now, it is important that it's more than just Google because basically right now Google controls Chromium, and they have been for the entire time because they did start Chromium, and therefore Google Chrome, of course. So it is good that this initiative is happening with the support of Google, naturally, and Meta, Microsoft, and Opera, and theoretically more organizations could join if they would like to be able to drive forward the ecosystem of the Chromium-based browsers. And we have some quotes from different people from different companies. So with the VP of Chrome, Parisa Tabriz, if I butchered that, I'm sorry. I most likely did. Says, with the incredible support of the Linux Foundation, we believe the supporters of Chromium-based browsers is an important opportunity to create a sustainable platform to support industry leaders, academia, developers, and the broader open source community in the continued development and innovation of the Chromium ecosystem. I feel like this is just someone copy and pasted stuff into like a chat GPT and outputted the quotes and then put all the quotes into this thing and it just kind of created the same things. I feel like I'm saying the same stuff repeatedly, you know, like the whole part about the industry leaders and academia and developers. And up here, it said the same thing roughly. Yeah. Yeah. Here it is. Neutral space where industry leaders, academia, developers are broader. Yeah. It's exactly the same. So Megan Perez, VP of Microsoft Edge, hopefully this is different, says Microsoft is pleased to join this initiative, which will help drive collaboration within the community, the Chromium ecosystem. This initiative aligns with our commitment to the web platform through meaningful and positive contributions, engagement in the collaborative engineering, and partnerships with the community to achieve the best outcome for everyone using the web. That is all different words. I like that. It's different from the rest of it. Now, this is another comment from the Christian Calandra, the EVP browsers for Opera, saying that as one of the major browsers contributing to the Chromium project, Opera is pleased to join the supporters of the Chromium-based browsers and to lend our efforts towards the development of the open source ecosystem. We look forward to collaborating with the members of the project to foster growth. I'm glad that there is some effort into getting more people and more companies involved in the development, because having one company control that sort of thing is not going to be the greatest experience, because then they're going to do like their best interest in mind. So it is good that there's a collective effort to this. But I don't think that's much different than like just having something to, you know, give some backing to another organization. I don't think this is really like taking over control. This is more of like launching an efforts to provide, you know, funding or contributive or collaborative effort in terms of contributions. That's what it feels like. But I also would like to see supporters of Gecko-based browsers. That would be good. So Linux Foundation, get on that. You should make contact Mozilla and make a initiative for supporters of Gecko-based browsers. 2025 has started with a new alpha from the Cosmic Desktop, and the System76 team have announced the Alpha 5 of Cosmic, and also, of course, of the Pop! OS distribution for the next version. This is the Alpha 5 of that too, because they're working in tandem for both of those things. So they say that System76 kicks off 2025 with a new Cosmic Alpha release. Our team is rested and racing towards an approaching beta of our new Rust-based desktop environment for Pop! OS and other distros. Cosmic Alpha 5 brings an early version of the Cosmic Media Player, user settings, and essential updates to Alt-Tab, variable refresh rates, and more. So this is the first instance of the Cosmic Media Player that I have seen. Now, I am going to do a walkthrough of the Alpha 5 because I haven't done one for 2, 3, or 4, and I had a lot of requests that I should do one for 4. Now there's no reason for that. I might as well just jump to 5. So in the coming few days or so, look out for that. Be sure to subscribe to the channel to be able to get that. And let's talk about what is new in the Alpha 5. So Cosmic Media Player is their new media player for the Cosmic Desktop. And it's interesting because you might be wondering, why would they make another media player? Well, they are doing it Rust-based, and they are doing it their own toolkit. So it does make sense that they need to have certain applications that are not going to be using other ones because they're not going to share the same underlying technologies. But I think this is kind of interesting because they're going to be making a Cosmic native codec installation application, which makes it easier to get various codecs, I would assume, to have support for various different types of media formats, which is a very cool idea. And they're also going to be using Vulkan for the rendering and VA API for decoding, where it's possible for efficient video playback. And also, that's very interesting because of these APIs are like hardware acceleration and that sort of stuff. So I'm very curious to see what the overall performance would be for this kind of media player. The real question would be, does it have all the features and functionality that I'm used to with like MPV and VLC? If it can do the basics, that's good enough. But there are some cool features that I like in MPV, for example. And maybe I go into like more details when I try it out in the video. I've also noted some stuff for the Alt-Tab recency ordering, which for those who are not familiar, Alt-Tab is just the cycle between applications. But they're doing something that's kind of interesting that I would slightly suggest a tweak here and there. So they're saying cycling through your open apps using Alt-Tab or Super-Tab will now cycle the apps in the order they were last active. Hold Alt or Super to select the app from the launcher using Tab, or quickly press and release the shortcut to jump to the most recent active window. That's how most Alt Tabs work. So what was it doing before? Like the order of when it was launched, maybe? Very curious. But if you want to put Shift into the Alt Tab, you can do the reverse order, which is also standard. But I would recommend not having Alt Tab and Super Tab do the same thing, because Alt Tab is what's the typical usage for that kind of cycling. I would suggest using Super Tab to switch between the virtual desktop / workspaces. That would be very cool. That's just a thought. Also, they made some updates to the variable refresh rate. So VRR has been refined to take into account a display's minimum refresh rate, which is very important. These refinements ensure that cursors appear to be moved smoothly, even if an application runs below this minimum refresh rate. The resulting stable cursor frame rate is most apparent in non-game applications running in full screen mode. That is very good because it does, when your mouse moves in a way that seems unnatural, it feels like the whole system has an issue. So I think that's very good that they're addressing that. They've also made a lot of improvements for the user settings, and they've also made some improvements for the file manager. So the contacts drawer navigation feature is nice because it allows you to open up the details for a particular file and then use the navigation stuff on the top to be able to switch back and forth between the different images rather than using your keyboard. Obviously, I hope the keyboard still works, but that's nice to add too. So there's definitely a lot more to talk about, and we'll cover that in the video for the Alpha 5 of Cosmic Desktop. Be sure to subscribe for that. But if you'd like to learn more right now, you can find the links in the show notes. This episode of This Week in Linux is sponsored by Sandfly Security. You chose Linux for its stability and its security, but as threats grow more sophisticated, detecting them in time without putting your systems at risk is more critical than ever. Traditional endpoint agents can cause downtime and performance issues, leaving visibility gaps. But there's a better way, and it's called Sandfly Security. Sandfly Security is an agentless security system for Linux. Sandfly not only does endpoint detection and response, but also performs SSH key tracking, password auditing, and drift detection to find the widest range of threats. Whether your servers are in the cloud, on-premises, or even embedded devices, Sandfly protects them all, without the need for risky agent installations. Now, Ken Kleiner, senior security engineer at the University of Massachusetts, explains it best. He says that Sandfly is the first product that he's seen that accurately and quickly detects thousands of signs of compromise on the Linux platform. Its unique method automates tasks that would be impossible to perform manually. And you can get the fast, non-invasive protection for your critical systems. No agents, no downtimes, just smarter security that works by visiting thisweekinlinux.com/Sandfly. That's thisweekinlinux.com/SANDFLY. Sandfly Security. And on top of that, you can get started for free up to 20 instances with Sandfly Security. So again, go to thisweekinlinux.com/Sandfly. So there's a new application for GNOME users called Refine, which lets you basically tweak some various settings that are related to the GNOME shell. And this is not necessarily the GNOME tweak kind of thing, because a lot of the stuff from GNOME tweak is being put into GNOME itself. And Refine is doing other things that are intended to not be like available by default, even in GNOME tweak. So stuff that's like kind of experimental, the stuff that's new coming, you can kind of play with it that way. OMG Ubuntu has a write-up about this particular application if you'd like to learn more details. And this is, they got tons of different features for appearance. You can do custom icon themes or change the cursor themes. And you can also tell it to prefer the light variant of the, like instead of like dark mode, if you like the light mode, you can turn that on for the light shell. And also you can control the fonts here, as well as doing middle click paste if you want to turn that on. Refine gives you the option to center new windows when they're launched. So basically just makes the window open in the middle of your screen, which I like that. And also to be able to attach modal windows. Model or modal? I'm not sure. Anyway, so windows that are like dialog pop-ups of another window, you can attach it that way, which I would choose to connect myself. Then you also have variable refresh options, fractional scaling options, X-Wayland native scaling, and many more, as well as the being able to control what the volume step is. So like if you try to change the volume with a keyboard shortcut or your mouse, you can tell how many times it does, how much it moves with this particular setting. And that's very nice. So there's a lot of cool stuff in here. Some of these things I would like to see being added by default. Like, for example, the variable refresh rate options, that should be something in the settings you could be able to choose, and the fractional scaling should be in there too. I know that there are ways to get fractional scaling in GNOME, but I haven't tried it in a while to fully know exactly how you activate it. But I think it's harder than it should be, if I recall correctly. But there are some notes that you should be aware of. For example, this is not made for all versions of GNOME Shell, because some GNOME some distributions that ship GNOME have modified versions, and it is not going to be that. It can be technically working on some things, but it's not going to be supported on those environments. So in this article, they talk about how there was a change that said that it was impossible to use this on Ubuntu. And this was a temporary issue. People were complaining about it, and the developer did decide to change it. So that's good. But the statement here is saying, I prefer not to support Ubuntu. This app is intended for GNOME, not for bizarre custom iterations of GNOME. That sounds more like an anti-Ubuntu thing, but it's more about being like a vanilla GNOME thing. And they did make that clear on the comments later on. So if you're curious, you can check it out, but just know that if you are using Ubuntu GNOME, or if you're using Zorin, which also is GNOME, but very modified, there may be some hit or misses in terms of feature compatibility and that sort of stuff. So if you're using Fedora GNOME, which is like vanilla GNOME, or OpenSUSE GNOME, you should be good to go to just try this out. But otherwise, keep that in mind, that it's not made for super modified versions, which most GNOME iterations are pretty modified. So just keep that in mind. So it's official. There is now a new device, handheld gaming device that has SteamOS running on it, and it is the Lenovo Legion Go S. Now, everyone knew this was going to happen because Valve announced they were going to be at CES at the Lenovo booth. So this was pretty much a guarantee, but it is now official. So we know for a fact this has happened. This will be the first officially licensed SteamOS-powered handheld gaming device not made by Valve. So this is coming out in May 2025. So there's actually also going to be a Windows version, because Lenovo is not, they're hedging their bets, and they're not going just SteamOS. They also have a Windows 11 version. So if you want to pay extra for a worse experience, you can check out that version, because that one comes in at $729, and the SteamOS model comes in at $499. So there's that. There's also going to be other configurations that you can get for starting at like $599 for depending for like the Windows model with different versions of it and stuff like that. So this is going to come with two different processor options: the Z2 Go, which is exclusive to Lenovo, and it was announced at CES 2025 by AMD. The Ryzen Z1 Extreme, which is supposedly going to be the one that's in the SteamOS model, and there's going to be the other one's going to be in the Windows model. I'm not sure if you can get the Z2 Go on both models, because there's not a lot of details in terms of what's going to be on the SteamOS version. We know a little bit about it, but not most of it. So it's still up in the air. We'll find out later on, towards May when they get to the release date. So from the press release, Lenovo says that Lenovo's vision for gaming has always been to deliver the most powerful and innovative technology, empowering gamers to play their way at their best. With groundbreaking devices like the Legion Go S and the world's first officially licensed handheld powered by SteamOS, and our redesigned Legion Pro laptops featuring stunning OLED displays, we're redefining what gaming experiences can be. End quote. Well, they also go on to say, and I quote, "These innovations are designed with competitive gamers and gaming students in mind, providing the performance, adaptability, and versatility needed to excel both in the game and academic fields like STEM. By combining cutting-edge hardware, gaming or gamer-focused AI-powered software, gross, and new form factors, Lenovo Legion is empowering the next generation of gamers to push boundaries and achieve their goals." So this is really good news that the Lenovo Legion Go S has SteamOS, because it shows that Valve is expanding beyond Steam Deck with SteamOS. And speaking of that, so Valve says that with Lenovo's announcement at CES 2025 of the Legion Go S, we are pleased to share that their powered by SteamOS model is the first handheld officially licensed to ship with Valve SteamOS. We built this operating system to provide a seamless user experience optimized for gaming, while retaining access to the power and flexibility of a PC. SteamOS is the same operating system we run on the Steam Deck, and the team is making updates to ensure it fully supports the Lenovo Legion Go S and provides the same seamless experience customers expect. In addition, the same work that we are doing to support the Lenovo Legion Go S will improve compatibility with other handhelds. Ahead of Legion Go S shipping, we will be shipping a beta of SteamOS, which should improve the experience on other handhelds, and users can download and test this for themselves. And of course, we'll continue adding support and improving the experience with future releases. So this is very cool news that Valve has announced that the Steam Deck is not the only device, but also more so that you're going to be able to get a beta of SteamOS. But it does appear that it's going to be handheld only. There's also a frequently asked questions section that if you want to get more details on it, you can check that out. But Gaming on Linux covered this, and they noticed something that was changed in this verbiage that I just said to you. After publishing, Valve tweaked the above quoted text that they have corrected in the article, saying that it originally said we will be shipping a beta of SteamOS, which should improve the experience on other devices, but they have now changed the ending to say other handhelds. Clearly, right now they're trying to keep expectations a little in check. I would agree with that. So I think that GamingOnLinux.com is correct here, because when you have the other devices, they could be intending to just say handhelds, and then people could take that as meaning other things that are not just handhelds. That could be any device. And they changed it to be like, hey, hold up a second. We're talking about handhelds here, people. So this is really cool news. Valve is announcing that the SteamOS is going to be available pretty soon, at least before May, because they said that it's going to be prior to the Legion Go S, and the Legion Go S is supposed to be coming out in May. So we will get somewhere between now and then, we're going to be able to check out the beta for SteamOS. And that's going to be cool, but it's also worth noting, they did mention handhelds. It also might be cool for like a set-top box or something like that, but it is not made for general purpose use. It's not for desktop usage. Yes, you can technically use the desktop version or the desktop mode for that, but you could just do that on the Steam Deck. If you wanted to put it on like a laptop or a desktop, it's going to be a lot different experience. At some point in the future, maybe that does happen. But right now, that is not in the plans just yet. So I look forward to that if it does happen, because that would be very cool to get an OS from Valve to be using on whatever you want. But right now, they're focused on handhelds and maybe going to dabble into other kinds of device form factors, but it'll be some time before we get to the whole laptop desktop approach. So just, get your hopes up a little bit, but not too much. If you'd like to learn more about this news for SteamOS expanding beyond Steam Deck, you'll find links in the show notes. Let me introduce you to the Mecha Comet. The Comet is a handheld Linux computer that brings extensibility in hardware and software adapting to your needs. This is such a cool device. Now, we recently recorded the latest episode of Destination Linux that's coming out very soon. I had never heard of this device until Destination Linux. And when we talked about it, I just had to tell you this is such a cool thing that I had to bring it up. I couldn't wait to tell you about it. So be sure to check out Destination Linux for more details and in-depth discussion about this, as well as many other things from CES that were announced. And also our predictions for 2025. That's in the next episode. So be sure to check it out, destinationlinux.net, for more information about that. But let's talk about the Mecha Comet. So as you can see from the rotating video, is that this is a detachable modular structure for a small device. And some of the cool stuff that it can do is just, there's an Ethernet port on it. There's USB-A ports. There's obviously a USB-C port. And there's GPIO pins, as you can see right in the middle. So here's things you can add. Extra features to make it like a game device with gaming controllers. Then you can also do ribbon connections because of the GPIO pins. And you can also attach a keyboard. And you're thinking maybe this could be a cool phone even. Yes, it can. Because down here, we're going to scroll down. It says things you can do. Linux phone. Impress your friends with a Linux DIY phone using an LTE modem. Like, there's so much cool stuff. AI assistant. Car whisperer. Add a Canon OBD port to the Comet and start talking. Whoa, that's cool. I didn't see that when we talked about DL. That's very cool. The OBD port is the port that's under the dash that tells you, like, if you have like your engine light show up, it'll tell you what signals and stuff like that. So you can connect this to that. Man, there's a lot of potential for this. If you're interested in this, you can sign up for the Kickstarter that is not actually launched yet, but you can sign up to be notified when it is launched. And there's even a early bird special that's going to be available. Thanks for watching this episode of This Week in Linux. If you like what I do here on the show and want to be kept up to date with what's going on in the Linux and open source world, then be sure to subscribe. And of course, remember to like that smash button. If you'd like to support the show and the Tux Digital Network, then consider becoming a patron by going to tuxdigital.com/membership, where you can get a bunch of cool perks like patron-only access to our Discord server and much, much more, including being able to join us in the Skybox for the patron-only section in the live stream. Yes, we do live streams. And by the way, we've recently brought the live streams back a couple of episodes ago, but the foreseeable future, we're going to be doing live streams. So we're live in 25. So if you'd like to join, you can go to thisweekinlinux.com/live, and it will take you to the next, or at least it'll tell you when the next one's going to be, because it will take you to the YouTube page for that live stream whenever it is. But typically it's Friday at 12 p.m. Central U.S. time, and the time zone converter will change it for you when you go to that page, thisweekinlinux.com/live. And speaking of live, there's a lot of great content in the live version that's very different from the show itself, because we have conversations back and forth. In fact, some of the topics are chosen by the people in the chat. We do live polls, and you get to vote on what topic is going to be in the show. And 2 of those topics were actually voted on by the live chat this week. So if you would like to participate in that, thisweekinlinux.com/live. You also get some extra perks if you're a patron. So tuxdigital.com/membership to check that out. And if you'd like to support the show, you can also do it by ordering the Linux is Everywhere t-shirt or the This Week in Linux shirt at tuxdigital.com/store. Plus, while you're there, check out all the other cool stuff we have, like hats, mugs, hoodies, and more. tuxdigital.com/store. I'll see you next time for another episode of your source for Linux news. Thanks again for watching. I'm Michael Tennell. I hope you're doing swell. Be sure to ring that notification bell. And until next time, I bid you farewell.